because
Welcome back to Drink Spin Run.
or whatever you think this is. It'll be that too. Whatever. Yeah. Hi, folks. Sorry, my computer blew up on me. I'm having a new one built soon, I guess. Until then.
Let's hope again.
Yeah. So I don't know where we were with the conversation. Ryan, pick up wherever you decide you want to pick up, because that's where I was when we left. Was Ryan was talking about stuff. So.
All right. Well, we started.
Who was the product? Because I got this this awesome introduction and I didn't know what it was.
Okay. So there. That's one thing in general. Let me start off saying this year that's different from other years, and it kind of maybe shows the evolution of where things are going in the OSR community. We have far more people that have professional and semi-professional products posted versus previous years where it was, a slew of just blog posts. So one of my favorite things, and I've actually had this in hand for a few months now. There's a guy who has a blog called Northwind, and basically what it's been is a slew of his house rules and rules that he's picked up and added to his Swords and Wizardry game, from everything from articles from the Strategic Review back in the day, the Dragon articles, to stuff from Bard's Games complete character series back in the early 80s, and all that sort of thing. And he put it in this this document that he calls Swords and Wizardry Northwind, which is just his entire house-ruled version of Swords and Wizardry with everything he used. And he put that into like this 300-page document that looks like it's a professional PDF. And because he just borrows rules from everywhere, it's free.
Right.
Just his house rule document.
Right. It's kind of hard to take a bunch of stuff that might have been published by Bard and whomever and be like, hey, I made this thing. Yeah, you collated that thing.
Yep. No, he outright. If you follow the link that's on the Appreciation Day Index, he actually explicitly says, there's no way I can really publish this thing because of all of the rules I've taken from everywhere. So here, have it for free and use what you want from it.
Cool.
And it's got all kinds of Appendix Any stuff and all kinds of stuff taken from Northern European mythology to name it. It's in there. He's got a section in here that could pretty much function as an Asian Adventures book by itself. And it's well done and well researched too. So it may not be his. He might have taken that whole section from something else. I'm not sure, but it's a really good free product as far as pulling house rules from.
Awesome. That sounds great. Cool. Anything else really stand out? You can give a quick bam, bam, bam.
There's a whole lot of sales this year as far as
yeah, I saw it on
new product, pay what you want.
Lesser Gnome put some stuff up for 40% off, which is pretty cool.
Lesser Gnome stuff was like the complete Death and Taxes box set with minis and everything.
Jeez.
You had to go through Tenkar to get a product code.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how many of them there actually were, but there was a limited number of product codes to get the full discount on it. He's got $10 off on it, period, all day. But if you wanted the full 40%, you had to have a code, and there were limited numbers of them.
All right. Well.
Yeah. Okay. But it was still an awesome sale. I just got to it real late. Lots of people might have gotten it. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, well then let's move on. I mean, so far we don't have any questions coming in that I have seen. There might have been some on the old Hangouts on here. So if you did post a question earlier, repost it now. We'll get to your questions, you gorgeous listeners, viewers, whatever you want to call yourselves. We will get to those when they come in. James, can we talk to you for a minute? I want to talk to you about this last year because you've been the busy guy.
You could say that, yeah, sure. I don't know what you want to talk about. It's been, it's been quiet. Nothing going on in the past year for me. I don't know what you could possibly be discussing.
Let's count it backwards. We got a Hero's Journey, right, which is a Swords and Wizardry variant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give us the elevator pitch for that.
It is James's house rules published and put in a professional format.
That's so exactly like what Ryan was talking about, right? Yeah.
It pretty much is. It's white box plus a lot of the stuff that was previously published in the omnibus, plus house rules that go back literally to last year's Swords and Wizardry Appreciation Day conversation with Bill Webb.
Awesome.
Like, some of the things Bill have stuck in my head still, and I was like, I want to build a game around some of the stuff he said, and started using the ideas, and it's got a slightly different feel.
Yeah.
It's built to evoke a slightly different feel, and that is just, I mean, it's James's house rules, and a couple people said, hey, you should publish that, and because it was all stuff I'd already published, I didn't feel right charging money for it, so I put it up as pay what you want.
Right. Cool. Awesome.
And it's had a surprisingly low reaction.
Okay, so that was Hero's Journey. Before that, we had the White Star. All the White Star stuff.
That little thing happened.
White Star did kind of blow up. I mean, there was a time there. I mean, and Don and I are still working on something for it. It's just taking us a while to get to it because, you know, we have a billion things. And Don's laughing at me because he's like, it's you, jerk. You're the reason. Which is the truth. It's totally me. And Don is well within his rights to point all kinds of fingers at me. But, yeah, White Star and the White Star Companion both came out in fairly quick order. I mean, you know,
a couple months of each other. The Companion was in development before the print for the core was even released. That was something I had planned on doing from the get-go.
Right.
But the Companion is just, I mean, it's all optional rules and all that. And to be honest, I did not expect White Star to be what it became.
Yeah.
I figured, I'll make it
really big, really fast. Yeah.
It was like, whoa, like, guys, calm down. It's Swords and Wizardry in space. It's cool. Yeah, it's Swords and Wizardry space opera. I mean,
I think that's why it took off, though. I mean, nobody else supported. I mean, if you look at like a lot of the other like BX or like, you know, OD&D, you know, in space stuff, one of my favorites was Hulks and Horrors, and that just kind of like that died on the vine. Like, it's a beautiful book. It's fantastic. I'm glad I own it, but it never happened. Nothing ever happened to it. Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, and then you've got like Crawford doing Stars Without Number, which is a fantastic product. And I thought people were gonna be like, "Oh, this guy's trying to follow up Crawford." It's not, and it would just get ignored because Crawford does awesome stuff.
Right.
So I was just like, "Oh, I'll put it out because this is how I would want to play sci-fi." So I'll just put it out there, and hopefully people like it. And then, holy God, I'm suddenly like got this successful game line, and it's weird and crazy, and I'm still just a dude. I'm glad you
awesome.
like me.
Yeah. Yeah, and then before that, of course, you had the success of the omnibus stuff. I got a little treat last year. Folks who were into Mythhoard last year would have gotten the same treat in that, you know, after I owned a copy, like a hardback copy of the omnibus, you would sneak a softcover copy into the Mythhoard a couple of months back, about a year ago, I guess. Which is cool because then I had one to give away.
Well, and I wanted to slip it in there because Mythhoard's a really, really good value, and Jared's a really solid guy. So I was like, look, dude, everything that I provide to him is as close to cost as I can make it. And it benefits me too because people who get it are like, and they like it, they might go and buy a supplement or buy the PDF so they can use the table. So it's really a win-win situation for everybody involved.
It's like getting to do it with different publishers, I think, which is the cool thing. You know, it gives publishers the opportunity to kind of meet, to introduce themselves to all kinds of different clients they might not, or customers they might not have gotten otherwise, which is pretty sweet. James, what's up next? What's coming up next from Girl Writer?
Oh, geez, I've got 4 White Star products currently in editing and layout, and 2 more in first draft stage.
Excellent. That's great news.
That is, it's White Star, and I'm actually juggling multiple freelance gigs right now that, due to NDAs, I can't really, obviously talk about. It's like, I thought I would get bored writing, continuing to write just thing after thing after thing for this game, and I'm not. I'm having so much fun because I can do crap like, I think angry squirrels who are murderous, horrible bastards with lightsabers or star swords is a cool idea.
Well, I think what was really smart about the way you wrote it is you didn't write yourself into a corner. You didn't say this is the setting. You're like, hey, here's some stuff.
Yeah.
And then different ways of looking at things.
Well, the big thing, and this is one of the beauties, this is why I appreciate Swords and Wizardry, is it's a toolbox. You open the toolbox, you take the pieces you want, and you build the game you want. And that was such a huge design thing with White Star because it's so present in every incarnation of Swords and Wizardry, whether you're White Box, Core, Complete, whatever, is you build the game you want. You know, I've had people say, well, White Star's too deadly. My players can get killed at first level. I want a more pulpy effect. Okay, start them at third. Problem solved.
Sure.
You know, or come up with a house rule that suits you. When I write White Star stuff, and Hero's Journey as well, I try to sprinkle house rules throughout because that implicitly encourages people to come up with them at the table.
Boy, Matt, I can't imagine any publication that would possibly have given them the idea for doing something like that. Can you?
No!
Yeah.
No!
That wasn't a design feature of Swords and Wizardry all the way through.
Yeah, and it's but so many games are like, these are the rules.
Yeah.
You know, to me it always boggles my mind when they do that. Like, no, the rules are fluid. Play with them. Make them work for you. You know, you don't work for them.
Sorry if I've sounded like an angry robot, folks.
It's all better now.
It went away.
Yeah, bandwidth is bandwidth. What are you going to do? Okay, so I want to move on. I want to talk, James, we're going to have you here, obviously.
I'm here all night, folks. Tip your waitress.
You're here all night, folks, yeah. Matt, Stacy, I'm so excited about this next printing of Swords and Wizardry. Talk to me about it. What can we expect from Swords and Wizardry? What's coming down the pike?
You want me to do it? All right.
Go for it, Stacy.
Yeah, you lead off, and then I'll take it from there.
All right. So, well, first of all, it's looking like the Kickstarter is going to be sometime in the middle of July, which ought to be really cool because it'll be going during Gen Con, which will be fun. I don't know. What should I say? Let's see. It's been a journey for me. That's absolutely for sure. There's been some big ups and big downs, and that have come back to ups again. So it's been a fun thing to do. It's hard. It's harder than I thought it was, and more fun than I thought it was at the same time too.
Does everybody know what the history was behind us getting started on that?
Well, however much we might know already, we'd love to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems to be that's a big question in the community right now as to what's going on with it. Why was this sparked? So.
Okay. Well, it started out with Stacy, basically, because she had something. I think it was in part of the Contessa discussions about the idea of the fact that a lot of women shy away from some of the old school style games, and it just had sort of a bad reputation for people being overbearing, and it being a very male community, and it is just demographically it's white men from the age of 35 to 55 is by far the overwhelming group of people that play the OSR games, even though there's also there's a lot of kids, a lot of millennials who play, but the vast majority of it, I think, is the people who started gaming in the late 70s and early 80s and coming back to it. And so with that perception of it being kind of an old boy game type of thing, and so on and so forth, Stacy was saying, well, hey, we could get together and write one a version that's more friendly to a female audience. And I got on with her and I said, hey, you know what, Swords and Wizardry is already there. If the issue is the appearance of the game, at least, why don't we what can be done with that to make it more accessible, at least as a visual physical product. Stacy and I talked about it, and the idea was, well, hey, Stacy's got a design team. The design team's all women. The goal was to create something that was that would increase the female audience for the game while not losing any of the male audience for the game, and it's not really a any sort of sociological initiative going on there. It's it's just an issue of getting a product that works for a wider audience. And so with that being the background, take it away, Stacy.
And I should say that I actually don't think that there's anything that's really bad for women in the existing version of Swords and Wizardry. I mean, it's a pretty well done book, and it's not like there's like
it's not like exploitative, pictures on every page.
Right, right.
We don't have like, experiences with a decapus every
Exactly.
couple of pages, right?
But you get pretty frequently you hear people say, when you say, why don't women like this type of why don't women like OSR games? A lot of times you hear it's the artwork. It's the artwork. There's artwork in there. We don't like the artwork the way that it is. And I can understand where that comes from. I don't know how much of that is actually true. So a lot of this is also a little bit of experimentation. If we take a book and it's all of Matt's writing, I've done a couple of minor changes to the section where it describes how you're playing, but that's it. And we're working with a little bit of formatting things to see if we can do a couple of neat things. But other than that, it's all Matt's writing. It's all, originally there, and all we're doing is we're swapping out all of the artwork for brand new artwork that's all created by women. So it really, for me, it hits two sweet spots for me.
Yeah.
One sweet spot is going to be, if women are making the artwork, chances are it's going to read to women better than it would just if it was, all male produced, which go back and forth, you can have it both ways, right? And the second is, for me, a big part of my initiative with Contessa is actually getting more women into the industry so that more women are writing, more women are creating. Then there's a bigger pool of women freelancers to actually look to when you're saying, like, I really need a new artist and I've been hiring guys for like ages and where can I find one? It's giving them that kind of exposure that they really badly need, and that push, that keep going kind of push. At least 2 of my artists are brand new to doing RPG work, and they've done a fantastic job in what they've done, and I'm really excited to see more of their work, in the future as they continue down this line.
So that brings me to ask, can you tell us some of the artists you have lined up, or that are already that are pumping stuff out for this project? I'm excited.
Yeah, my favorite one, her name is Chaos. She actually goes by Chaos Nest. She's from Europe. I think she's from Italy, but every time I talk to her, I swear she's in a different country. And she's like, I'm working my way through Ireland right now, and I only have this scanner right now with me. But it's
Nice.
really great to talk to her. She does some really kind of metal stuff, I guess I should say. Really great pen work. It's really, she actually did the cover to it. And
the cover is kick-ass.
I love the cover.
Oh yeah, I think I found her on. Is she on Deviant Nest or DeviantArt? No,
Yeah,
DeviantNet. Yeah, Chaos with a K, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Wow, this is
Yeah.
awesome stuff.
And
I'll put a link out there for folks. I'm going to put it right in our comments or our show description so that they can find it right away, because I want it's just so cool. I want people to see it.
And of course, my computer has decided that it's going to not boot my drive to find the rest of the names that I'm looking for, so I'm going to have to go.
Well, there are some names that are familiar to folks, who've been around the OSR for a while, right? Sarah Richardson, did she do some stuff for it?
She did, but she's not with us anymore.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I don't know if many of the other ones are, but let me check
Okay.
here real quick. Let me go through the names that I have. S&W Finals. The other one that I really like a lot is Abigail Larson, but she hasn't done a whole lot of RPG stuff either. She was somebody that was recommended to me for her illustrations, and actually some of the best illustrations that I saw her in all of her example work was for editorial work for places like The New Yorker.
Oh, wow.
I think is what it was, but so I was like, so I went to her and I was kind of like, I really, I like your style, and this is kind of what we're doing, and and she's given us some like really. I was looking for mainly. I don't want the book to look like basically every other RPG book that's out there. Every other style. I wanted to actually have a little bit something different going for it. And OSR does a lot of metal kind of stuff, so I went in a kind of what am I calling it now? I'm calling it a gothic fairy tale. So it's got some metal aspects to it.
Beautiful.
But also that that kind of those luscious manuscripts that you see that with the cool drop caps and borders on the pages.
Mm-hmm.
And Abigail did all of our page borders, which are just incredibly awesome. There's a different one for each section of the book.
Very cool. I think I found her website too,
Yeah.
so I want to put that in the notes as well, so folks can get an idea what they can expect.
Sorry.
'Cause this is exciting stuff.
Abigail did the character classes. The one that I was talking about was Angela Riza. Yeah, Abigail is great for that too. Yeah, if you've got her link too, make sure.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Angela Riza, can you spell that last name for me?
Rizza.
Beautiful. All right.
So she's done some awesome stuff for us too. A few full pages actually.
Whoa. Sorry, I just saw her website. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
The only thing that I wish that like Bill had unlimited amounts of money and would do this in color. But I know how expensive that is. I'm like, oh man, I wish I could have the color all these people work with.
Well, and then with the way that Frog God puts books together, like that would, imagine the cost to the consumer. It's kind of hard to get like more people into a game when the game itself costs $100.
Exactly.
Little. We'll pay it. Yes, we'll pay it. It's like the thing that Dennis Leary said about cigarettes back in the '90s, right? We'll line up around the block. We'll still buy it, but like you get more folks out there with the cheaper version.
Yeah. And then Jennifer Bone, you probably heard of her if you've been around our world. She did all of our monster illustrations.
She's great for monsters. She's just so good for monsters.
Yeah.
But what she did with Raphael just blows me away. Yeah. Anyway, awesome. I'm so excited to hear about this. And so we're thinking Kickstarter is probably going to be mid-July. So when are we thinking fulfillment? Maybe December-ish, maybe January-ish, something like that.
That's a good question.
Yeah, hard to say. It
depends on how much the stretch goals balloon the thing out. Yeah.
It does, and well, actually, I don't think the stretch goals on this one would add too much time because those will be soft cover, and we can turn around soft cover a lot more predictably and faster than we can with hardcover. The main thing is, where does it fall in the printer's queue? Since we go through a yearbook publisher. So that we can get, the signature stitched books and the really high quality binding, but that does mean that they have certain times of the year when they're really busy and we have to get put in a queue. Yeah. Oh, incidentally, just the way that I, was not able to make last year's podcast as a result of Thunder and Lightning knocking out my electricity, let me just mention I've got Thunder and Lightning over here.
Oh, no.
So if I disappear from here, it's just going to be an annual thing that I get Thunder and Lightning on Swords and Wizardry Day.
There's Thunder and Lightning on Swords and Wizardry Days. Is God trying to tell you something, Matt?
Yeah.
Well, all the voices in my head, I figure that's probably, God and a whole bunch of other people talking to me and trying to...
Yeah, these delusions about God talking to you. And So for us here at DSR, the voice of God is often that of our listeners, and we've got some questions from our listeners coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and ask those now. The first one I'm going to ask is actually coming from DM Kojo over on Twitch. He wants to know what's each of our favorite version, or which is our preferred version of Swords and Wizardry. What do we prefer to play at our tables? So here's a little, you can count on Kojo for a nice pot-stirring question. So I'll start. I'll tell you my favorite version, or the version I like to play at my table more than any other is, or run at my table, is White Box. I'm a big fan of White Box. Like James, I like the simplicity. I like that I can, Swords and Wizardry is easy to hack to get it to do what you want it to. White Box is the easiest of that. I have the fewest consequences of me changing a single detail, and I really like that. So that's my answer. Hey Ryan, what about you? What do you like to run at your table?
I run complete all the time. I run complete with a bunch of my other crap thrown into it.
So why do you prefer complete, or why do you like to run complete?
But I personally like complete because when it comes to OD&D, I love running OD&D with all the supplements. The one thing that complete is missing from all those books is the psionic system. That may or may not actually be a bad thing based on how the psionic system was set up back then. But I love complete. I love everything that it encompasses. And it allows me, not that White Box wouldn't, but it allows me to draw in a whole lot of extra stuff in there that's specific to my campaign worlds.
Cool. All right. Stacy, what about you? What do you prefer to run at your table?
I run Complete. That's really the only one that I've ever done anything with. So I don't know that I actually have an opinion on why. I think it's because when I first started playing Swords and Wizardry, it was with Christopher Helton's group that we run on Tuesday nights, and he was running Complete. So when I picked it up, I started running Complete. Never really thought about whether or not I should run any other version.
All right. So, hey, Matt.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go straight to you, man. I kind of think I know what James's answer might be with some recent things he might have published. So, what about you? What kind of Swords and Wizardry do you run?
Well, I play Complete pretty much nowadays. When I started out, using actual Swords and Wizardry rule books instead of using OD&D books, I played just with the box set plus the Greyhawk supplement, which includes paladins and thieves, but doesn't include much else. Additionally, but the big thing about the Greyhawk.
Come on, you got variable hit dice in there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You've got the variable hit dice, and I like that system. And so that was really the reason for it, is the structural changes that jumped up in Greyhawk from White Box I like. But then what happened was, in conventions, I started having mainly kids crop up and say, I want to play a druid, I want to play a ranger, things like that. And so I just sort of shifted it over toward Complete, so that they would have something to look at, to reference what sort of spells they had. And then, from there, I just sort of slid really into Complete, adding the other stuff. I've always liked druids a lot for starters, and so it was a real big, nervous moment the first time that Dennis Sestair came and played in my group. Because anybody who's looked at the advanced D&D rule books, knows the chariot of Sestair, and he's listed as the Grand Druid in Eldritch Wizardry book of OD&D, and he's absolutely one of the great iconic designers and writers that was involved in it. And there he is sitting at my table. I'm thinking to myself, please God, don't play.
Don't screw this up.
Please God, don't play a druid.
So I'm gonna ask the same question to James. I think I might know your answer, but let's hear it.
I like to take a white box and hack the crap out of it and turn
You don't
it into sometimes completely different games. Yeah, I can relate to Matt. I had Peter Schweifer at a table of mine in a D6 Star Wars campaign, and I was shaking like a leaf. He was the lead editor on the second edition line of Star Wars. I was like, oh God. But yeah, it's white box all the way, and I hack it all. I mean, I don't want to say I hack it to pieces, but I turn it into what I want it to be, and I find the minimalist aspect of it making it that very easy to do.
Awesome. Hey, Don, what about you?
Complete.
Complete? Why? Give me the
Just
why.
because, I've played.
Rangers?
Yeah, because it has Rangers. I've mostly played.
It's because of
D&D First Edition, so I want
what are
more
we talking
stuff
about?
that's I want more stuff that's like that in my
That's your wheelhouse, yeah. 1E is your thing.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's like if 1E made more sense.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But
I don't even have that book. I only have the white box book, so there's that.
oh, well, Don, you shouldn't have admitted that in front of our guests.
What?
We'll have to send you one. You'll get me your address, and we'll send you a copy of the book.
Oh, nice.
That's why he did it, Matt. Don't buy it. Don't
You're right. He's got. Wait, there's I can see a copy of it behind you.
You fell for it. Oh, gee. Okay, I do want to. We got some other awesome questions here. Really,
Right.
really excited.
I want to get to more questions, but before we get to another one,
Yeah.
I've got like 14 products that we have to have drawings for.
Okay.
So the first thing that I'm going to draw straws from this hat for here is Frog God. Matt got in touch with me earlier today, and Frog God is generously donating 5 PDF copies of the Borderland Princes.
Sweet.
So I'm going to draw those 5 names right now. And
Hopefully they're watching.
yeah.
That's
Well,
like going to be like all our viewers. But that's
for
okay.
anybody who's not watching or listening right now, I am going to be posting this all in 2 days on my blog so that people can get in touch with me and I can put them in touch with whoever needs to get them stuff. But our first winner is, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his last name right, is John Miskamin.
So John, if you're watching, you got something coming to you, man. Who's next? What else we got?
Our second, I'm going to draw. We've got 5 copies of Borderland Princess, so that's what I'm doing right now, and we'll break again in a little bit for more stuff.
Okay.
Our second winner is Ben.
We were really bad last year with this. Was it who's Ben? Ben
Troutman.
I know Ben's watching. Ben.
Ben, you want to
Borderland Princess, get it your way, man. That's good because I have a question for Ben, which is what I'm going to pick up with when I don't know if you guys can see it. The Q&A app if you ever brought it up. But that's the question I'm asking when we come back.
Our third winner is Jose Zamora.
Jose, 2 more.
Number 4 is James Smith.
Which James Smith?
There are a couple, right?
Yeah, it could be James Beardy Smith from.
That's a good question. I've got him through Google Plus where he entered this, so
Okay.
I'll find him.
Let's hope. I hope it's James Smith from Cincy. Love that guy.
And our last winner is Dennis McCarthy.
Awesome. Well, Dennis, congratulations. You are the proud owner of the PDF copy of Borderland Princess from Frog Gun Games. So happy to be able to do that. Okay, so I do want to get Ben Troutman does have an awesome question for us, and this is actually going to be directed to Stacy. Stacy, Ben asks, besides the art, what appeals to women in an OSR style product?
That's a really good question that I actually don't know if I can answer.
I know, because you're like speaking for all women, right?
Yeah. Well, and not just for that, but because I don't necessarily think that it's the products that turn women off. I think it's the reputation more than that. But things that I've heard, I've heard a lot of D&D is hard. There's too many rules that I have to worry about and too much math, which I think is a perception issue because old school D&D is really not, and it is really pretty, lightweight and it's pretty easy to learn. I mean, I've taught quite a few women how to play D&D, and it takes like 5 minutes.
Right.
Roll the dice. Right. It's not really that hard. So it's really kind of hard to actually pinpoint that, and that's why I think one of the reasons why this kind of thing is really important to do, because we don't have any metrics on anything having to do with that. There hasn't been really a lot of thought put into, if we change the artwork, what happens? If we change the genre, what happens? If we do this at conventions, what happens? If we, what kind of things, different kind of things that we can do. So it's another one of those things that's actually going to help us build on some more information as to actually how we can actually reach women better. I actually, there's that question is usually like, well, you need to go to is answered like, well, you need to go to a specific genre, or you need to write romance games, or you need to write story-related games, or some things that tend to be kind of really stereotypical, and those end up with really shallow products.
And if my wife was here, she would fight those answers tooth and nail.
Yeah, most women I know would, actually.
Yeah, you talked to Katie a little bit about this stuff before, too, I think, Stacy.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Cool.
Stacy, I've got a sub-question on that one about stuff that you've heard, because one of the things that I've had a couple people come up to me and say is that it's not so much the rules, it's the way that the other people around the table, presumably guys, treat the role of the rules in the game. And so I had one woman come up to me in a game store where I was signing books, and she said, hey, you need to write a girlfriend game. And I was like, what? And she said, well, this is what happens. She says, I started playing, she's a long-term gamer, but she, like a lot of people, I think she started playing, because there was a boyfriend playing, got dragged into the game, and then the whole rest of the group said, hey, why don't you run a game? And she says, well, the moment that you start that, you begin getting the rules lawyering from the other people around the table. And you're getting, overridden on the basis of the rules, and that, and so, sort of, again, like your point about how the OSR types of rules are they're built for not being hyper interpreted. They're built very much around the concept of, the DM is simply the arbiter of these rules. And so, what I told her was, this copy of Swords and Wizardry is actually a pretty good example of what you can use for what you're talking about. But is that
when the rules themselves have like 1,000 different, hey, here, you can do this optional thing, you can do that optional thing, here's one way to read this, here's another way to read this. I mean, and that's incomplete, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then, but I mean, Stacy, is that something that you've also run into, or is that just from my couple of anecdotal,
Yeah. There's something that's called the confidence gap between men and women. There's actually a book about exactly that. And the confidence gap, a part of what it does is it makes it so that men tend to be socialized to where you're used to interrupting each other. You're kind of used to being a little bit more aggressive in the way that you talk to one another. And you tend to be, what's the other thing that I was thinking of? You tend to fail better than women. And what that means is that guys and boys, when they're kids, are often taught to roughhouse with one another and play with one another. And if they break something or something screws up, boys will be boys. So you pick yourself up and you dust yourself off and you move on. Girls are often socialized to be nice and sweet and kind and never to do anything wrong. So when you put a lot of women in front of groups of men who are, it only takes one in a group. It only takes one. Rules lawyer, or somebody who's overriding her all the time, saying, well, actually is actually one of them. Actually, that's not the way that really works. It only really takes one or two of those kind of experiences to push a woman away entirely from the hobby. And I mean, I've had some really heartbreaking conversations with women who it has nothing to do with the game, it has nothing to do with rules, it has entirely to do with how she's being treated at the table, how she's being talked to, and she doesn't want to keep coming back and trying that over and over again. Whereas I think a lot of guys, you get into a bad group, you're like, whatever, I'm going to go to the next group and see how that goes, and then you keep trying. Women won't keep trying. They'll just stop after a couple of tries and be like, that's done. And that's actually something that I've heard really, really commonly amongst women when they talk to me about why they're not interested in OSR games. They'll be like, well, I went to this one game at a convention, and I sat down, and this guy was just a complete jerk to me, and nobody else at the table really backed me up or anything like that, so I don't really feel like putting myself out there like that again. And I've fielded some really weird ideas about what the OSR is based on that. That's really, like, one person at an entire table of 6 doing something like that can just completely destroy it.
Yeah.
I've watched my wife experience. I met my wife at a game. And I've watched her go through that. And my wife, being the awesome, amazing woman that she is, said, the last time I checked, this is not a democracy. She just lays it out.
Yeah.
And and she's not out to rules lawyer anybody or be rules lawyer. She's like, this is a collective story. It's a collective experience. There's a give and take.
Yeah.
And to be frank, man or woman, whoever you are, that kind of stuff is, if you really have a problem with the way rules interpreted, bring it up after the game, and bring it up privately. Out of respect for everyone else's time at the table and for the authority of the DM and the personal respect for the person. And people feel like they don't have to do that.
Yeah. And I think that happens at tables with all guys too, because I talk to guys all the time and they're like, oh god, I went to this game at this con and this guy was just rules lawyering the entire time and it was just so boring and I was just tired of hearing from him, and it's just like the guys are a little bit more resilient. They'll just keep coming back anyways and just deal with that guy.
Yeah, I do think that ours is a hobby that attracts a lot of folks who are gonna pick those particular nits, which it is unfortunate that those.
And sometimes it really just takes the GM saying, "Hey, could you back off a little bit?"
I'll tell you, I've had to do that at my own game table, like for games that I continue to run. It sucks. It sucks having to do that, but it's something that you have to do to keep a little bit of to keep control to some degree.
I had somebody actually rules lawyering me on a game that I wrote once.
I've had someone do
Wow.
I had someone do that to me with Swords and Wizardry once, and I said, "Wait, are you trying to rules lawyer me?"
Wow.
That's impressive.
Wow. I couldn't imagine.
Hey Stacy, I got another question for you. This one's coming from Dan Domi, and he wants to know, what kind of typefaces are going to be used. This is an issue that's very important to him, and he says he knows it's not important to anyone else. But are we talking a deviation in typeface? Fonts?
Yeah, there's new fonts. Absolutely.
There we go, Dan. There's your question answered.
I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but the fonts were the most difficult thing that I had to pick for this.
It's tough, yeah. Doing some small publishing stuff myself, I could tell you, like, it took me a long time to settle on Libra Baskerville. Just saying. It's a tough decision.
I still don't know the name of the font my editor uses. I just trust him.
Hey, James, I got a question for you. Does Hero's Journey have a setting?
Hero's Journey does not have a setting.
The art has a very like Tolkien-y feel to it.
Yes. There is an implied feel, theme, and tone, but there is no defined setting. It actually says in the book there is no default setting. There are themes and tones and stylistic elements throughout, but it's definitely very Tolkienian, but anybody who knows me for 30 seconds knows that I am obsessed with Tolkien, and I've got a Hobbit clock on the wall behind me. But Tolkien, Narnia, Grimm's fairy tale, that very, it is a wild and dangerous and wonderful world out there.
Right. Yeah.
Is really the theme for Hero's Journey, and I don't like designing a game with an automatic setting because then players feel locked into that. Yeah. If you pick up Star Wars D6 and try to run something that's not Star Wars, even if the players all know that, they'll say, but in Star Wars, this is how it would work, even if you're running it to do a completely original sci-fi setting. And so when I wrote White Star and Hero's Journey, no, there's no implied setting, because come up with your own. Don't play second fiddle to somebody else's history.
Right.
Unless that's what you're into. Unless you're having fun with it. I love running.
But really, that's why licensed games exist, right?
Exactly. If you want to, and actually I had somebody bring it up. It was hilarious. Somebody left a comment on the Hero's Journey storefront on RPG Now. They said, "This is a if you want a real Tolkien game, buy the One Ring." And I replied with, "As someone who has freelanced on the One Ring, I can tell you that the One Ring is a fantastic, wonderful game, and this is not the One Ring. This is not Tolkien. These are styled elements." And the thread just ended, like no reply, no nothing. So so there's no implied setting. Make it your own. Take the themes presented, and if you don't want to use them, just take elements from the game and put them in whatever you're running. I wrote it, but it's whoever bought it. It's your game.
Yeah, there you go. There's from the horse's mouth, the proverbial horse. Great. Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Do you have something else you want to give away?
Yeah, I do.
What are we giving away this time?
This time we are giving away, again from Frog Guide Games, we're giving away 3 physical copies of Bill Webb's Book of Dirty Tricks.
I'm going to tell you, this is a book I bring it with me, like pretty much everywhere I go. Which
I want that book so bad. God, it looks like so much fun.
I'll tell you the reason. It's because it's small. So it fits in just about anything that I'm carrying with me.
It's small. It's packed full of good house ruling stuff.
It is.
So.
Matt, I do have to say I like that you guys, had the like, hey, if you actually play Pathfinder, do it this way instead in there, which is pretty obvious to anybody who's met Bill that someone else had to write that stuff for Bill.
Absolutely. In fact,
Yes.
when you get draft manuscripts from Bill, every once in a while there's brackets and it says Skeeter put some rules in here.
He's told me that before, yeah. Awesome. Put some rules in. These rules go here. All right. So who's winning? Who's winning Bill Webb's Book of Dirty Tricks?
All right. So the winners of Bill Webb's Book of Dirty Tricks are. The first winner is Paul Go.
Paul's good people. Paul's good people.
My second winner is and I don't have an actual name to go with this. I've only ever talked to him through his handle, which is Appalachian Elf.
Okay. And
our third winner is Joshua Nichols.
Joshua Nichols. Awesome. Is that, do we have more? Dude, how many copies
Yeah,
is good?
those are the three, unless you want to do some other products.
Let's stop there. James, I have another question for you. This one comes from Nathan Pankey, friend of the show, recovering from surgery. Nathan Pankey. He asks, "Was Hero's Journey a Swords and Wizardry hack of second edition?"
No. And that's a question I've actually had other people ask. It definitely, the layout evokes that second edition AD&D feel, but that's totally personal to me because second edition was where it was the edition where I knew I was going to be a lifelong gamer. I opened that book and I saw that adventurer group standing around that dragon, and I was like, yes. And I read and reread that player's handbook over and over again and looked at the art. So no, is there inspiration from second edition there? Absolutely. The layout is definitely inspired by second edition, and a couple other small elements, but it's absolutely not a second edition hack or a second edition retro clone at all.
Yeah. So no, Nathan.
No.
Bad
No.
Nathan. I'm just kidding.
Not that
Nathan, the thing I like about Nathan is he's the only person who looks like he's photobombing his own selfies.
He does. Awesome. So, hey, Stacy. I know a convention here near me that's really wants to have you come to Fabulous Ypsilanti next year. UConn, I hear, is like you're at top of the list of folks to come here.
I know. I need to call. I forget what his name is. Shane.
Shane? Yeah.
Shane. And I keep getting massively booked by things. I need to actually put it on a calendar so that it reminds me. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
You really should come. You'll have a blast. It's a good place. UConn's a fun convention. I'm like always busy the whole convention. You'll have a blast.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Is it talking about a theme or anything? I mean, is it an OSR convention or is it just a convention?
Okay, then I'm here. It's not strictly an OSR convention. A couple of years back, Adam and I were there, and we were talking about there were so many OSR games going on, and they designate games by things that they call tracks. And we started talking. They
didn't have an OSR track. It was all just jammed into the RPG track, and we're like,
and it was like the people that they had doing game organization would have like 5 DCC games at the same time, like 4 Swords and Wizardry games at the same time. And I said, hey guys, you need somebody to organize this so you can spread this out a little bit here. So I kind of volunteered and became their volunteer for running an OSR track, which has been every year. The past couple of years that we've had it have been huge tracks with great turnouts. So we've almost got our own like little convention within the greater convention.
I've got to learn not to schedule my stuff at the same time as Ryan's because we're stealing the same players.
Well, last year too, we had that snowstorm, and it knocked out like everybody that pre-regged for my game that day, and all of yours were staying in the hotel. So yeah.
Don't say snowstorm in front of Stacy though.
Yeah, she's Californian. Don't screw with the mojo. Matt, we'd love to have you too, of course. We're just trying to get Stacy. We'd love to have you as well. Yeah. Hey, how are we doing? What else we got? Matt.
If you need to know about the UConn experience, not to cut in here, but if you need to know about the experience as far as how they treat people, give Bill a call. Bill was a sponsor last year, so
yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
It was an awesome experience. So
Cool.
That's cool.
Hey, Matt. We've been talking a lot about this new printing of Swords and Wizardry Complete. What else do we have, from Frog God, from Swords and Wizardry that we can expect the next year? Let's just say.
Okay. Well, I mean, one of the rules that I set for myself. I mean, there were really 2 rules that I operate by. One is, pretty much no splat books. I mean, one day I might do, something that's a supplement with some of the rules that I do, but the rule was no splat books. Mm-hmm. So there's really not going to be anything that's specific to Swords and Wizardry as a rule set. That's something I'd rather have other people do. And the other rule was about White Box, which was that I was not going to publish anything for White Box myself because there's a definite commercializing aspect whenever I get involved in one of these things, because people sort of look at it as being, you know, oh, that's official, and also because you know, it freed up the game to not feel like it had an implied setting, a lot like what James was saying earlier, which, you know, even the look and feel of a rule book can make people think that there is an implied setting to it. And so, you know, I sort of set white box aside as being an area where it would have more fan influence on it and more DIY feel to it, and let people, you know, like James come in, and there have been a lot of other people, you know, who worked with that. So there's not going to be anything that is rules related for Swords and Wizardry in the next year. Probably the big thing that's going to be coming out from us is Bard's Gate, which is, you know, the city adventure. We're not adventures, you know, it's a city that's been the core of you know, a lot of the Necromancer games products. You know, it's linked, it's a spider work, it's one of the cities from the old campaign that those guys had at the get-go, and so that's probably going to be one of the big ones, is, you know, a bit of city adventuring for Swords and Wizardry. It's a relatively traditional type of city, although, you know, it's most of the Frog God stuff is based on the idea of demons and evil stuff behind things, but you don't really see it on the surface when you're looking at it. And so the surface appearance of Bard's Gate is a relatively traditional fantasy city. We don't go you know, so much toward the metal side. We do get you know, some fairly you know, dream psychedelic type of stuff, you know, like the Cyclopean Deeps in there, or, you know, or we get into the really swords and sorcery stuff, but it's usually hidden behind a facade. That's one of the things that the players have to find. So you know, in terms of products, I'd say it's probably Bard's Gate is the biggest one. We're you know, we're going to continue doing standalone, you know, books of standalone adventures. If you publish a standalone adventure by itself, it usually costs about $12, whereas you can print, you know, 8 of them in one book, you know, for $35 or $40 and get, you know, massive you know, cost savings on it. So we, you know, continue to sort of go that direction with it, and so, you know, there will be more books of standalone adventures, and those are probably the 2 main things. We're going to talk in Dallas at North Texas Con about what other things we're going to do beyond that point. So, you know, we'll have it nailed down a little bit more then.
All right, so I know when I'm going to talk to you again.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, you know, there's something else that I've been seeing a couple of people ask me about, and about Swords and Wizardry. Not necessarily me, but I like ask about. And that is like convention support. Right now, we're seeing a number of publishers that just do an awesome job of supporting their game at conventions. I'm not saying you guys don't do a good job. You know, I'm not saying anything like that right now. But I am saying that, like, you know, if you look at Goodman Games, their support for DCC on a convention level, and like even like a game store, running a regular game in a game store kind of level, you know, have you guys thought about doing anything like that, you know, to get the Swords and Wizardry, you know, get exposure out there a little bit more?
Well, yeah, we've thought about it a lot of times, you know, and started to do things, and then just had it, you know, we didn't follow through with it particularly well. We don't have anyone who is really. I mean, the thing about Frog God is there's no one who's full time with Frog God. It's a large group of part-time people instead of a small group of full-time people, and so we just don't have anybody who you know, really goes to conventions with the sort of frequency you know, that Goodman Games has. You know, they've got Michael Curtis, and, you know, and Joe travels around a lot, and so that's one of the areas where they've got a natural strength to do that sort of a program, and we don't. You know, and we've often sort of looked at, you know, what sort of products you know, might be helpful to get people, but it's just the organization of a program like that's never really come together for us. You want to volunteer to help out with that?
Brian, do you want to volunteer?
I volunteer.
I got enough things going on here.
So I could do something.
My son turned 9 months old today, so like I don't. I'm out of anything like that for a while. I got to do the show. I got a blog I ignore.
I have a blog I ignore too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. That's just something that I know Ryan and I have talked about in the past. Like, hey, if they did something like this, how sweet would that be? And it does. I mean, it does help push things at conventions.
Well, the question is what to do. I mean,
yeah, really.
It's because we're not about just doing fanfare and stuff. The question is what's actually going to help people run games, and if it's only to drum up sales, that's a lot less interesting. I mean, we don't make a lot of money. We're in it for the fun. If it's not fun, screw it.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Hey, do we want to go ahead and do the petty gods thing?
Yeah, we can do the petty gods thing. Although it wasn't written for Swords and Wizardry explicitly,
it's definitely an old school gaming.
It's easy to use with it. I don't play either of the games. That actually it only ended up getting published for Labyrinth Lord, but I don't play Labyrinth Lord. But I use it at my table regularly. So I have 2 soft cover copies of Petty Gods in my house currently that I'm giving away. So
I didn't realize these were from you. Okay.
These are from me. They're from Gamers and Grognard Studios.
Nice.
Awesome. Here I was thinking it was Greg.
And my stuff, and anybody else that's local to me who wants to toss in an autograph on their shit, there'll be some autographs in there, at least mine. Possibly a couple of local artists we got here.
Cool.
And our winners here are
Matt Finch.
Oh,
simultaneous.
the winners of the Petty Gods soft covers are Scott Dexter and DJ Chadwick.
Hey, DJ Chadwick.
Too. I believe he did something last year too.
I think so. Yeah. So, hey, let's open it up. I was hoping we were going to get a bunch of questions. So, folks who are watching this live, ask me a bunch of questions, or ask us a bunch of questions, and we'll get them out there. But as it stands, do you have a question?
I have a question for Matt that I've been curious about for a little while, and I almost asked him while we were off air there.
I'm glad you waited.
This actually came to me. Somebody asked me if I knew at a game I was running at a convention last year sometime, and it's stuck in my mind. Is in Swords and Wizardry Complete, you picked up the Ranger, who was actually published in the Strategic Review, not in any of the supplements for OD&D.
Right.
But there were 2 other classes that were released in the Strategic Review that didn't make the cut, and I was wondering if there was a rhyme or reason why, because there was a bard for OD&D in the Strategic Review that's way less overpowered and ridiculous than the one that appeared in AD&D, and there was also an illusionist for OD&D published in there as well.
I can't remember about the bard, whether it was because it came after the artificial time cutoff that I put in there, because Swords and Wizardry, for all that it is now, a relatively popular, running and living game. One of the things it also is a retro clone that was designed for people who either wanted to play historically, or go back and see what it was like in the old days, or use it for publishing. And so I did have a time cutoff for that, and I think the bard fell outside the time cutoff. It was in a later issue of Strategic Review.
That makes sense. I think it's actually in the last issue that they published of the Strategic Review, which was right on kind of the cusp of the Dragon coming out.
Well,
Right.
Both the Illusionist and the Bard were in the second volume, because the first volume, where the Ranger was like in the first or second issue, right? So that might make a lot of sense to me. Okay.
And then the other thing is that I know for the Illusionist, because we had this issue when we wrote Osric as well. But it was much more pronounced for original D&D, was simply that the Illusionist class that was published in the Strategic Review was not the Illusionist class that was done for first edition D&D. They made very major changes to it, and then it was, and then again, it was not. There was no illusionist in the system reference document, which was legally one of the linchpins that's involved here. So the original D&D illusionist, simply you couldn't copy what was in there. I mean, so much of it was flavor, whereas all that you can really use is rules. If we had duplicated that flavor, I think it would have ended up being a copyright violation, and so it wasn't that I wouldn't have liked to have it in there, but it was impossible to do.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. But Don, how are you feeling? You got any questions? My lovely co-host, you've been pretty quiet for quite a while.
Yeah. Well.
Are you fanboying?
No, I'm just enjoying the discussion as usual. I just love hearing people talk.
That's why I'm the other co-host of the show.
That's why I got somebody who was very talky to be my co-host. But no, yeah, I was about to fanboy out, but not gonna do it. No, Adam, I have no questions for this panel.
Oh, we got another question from Ben Troutman, and this one is gonna, I think, maybe get a nuanced answer. And it goes a little something like this. He says drive-through RPG, but I'm going to go ahead and call it OBS, One Bookshelf, is the big PDF distributor, but new distributors are starting to enter the scene. How are the new distributors working out, and would you recommend these new distributors for new authors? So, Matt, I know you're involved with Tabletop Library, so I only really realized that because you're one of the voices that speak for that organ, and Bill is why I knew about it, because he talked to me about publishing my stuff through there. So I'm going to ask you just for the moment to recuse yourself from answering while I turn to some of to specifically James. Stacy, do you have anything that's self-published?
I have a zine that I sent over Gumroad. But
oh, right, yeah, the Contessa zine, right?
Yeah, there's a Contessa zine, and then there's a couple of issues of Randomosity before I got too busy to actually finish it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, yeah. I was thinking of Randomosity, so...
Yeah, we did a version of Randomosity that was for Contessa, so...
That's why I'm confused. Okay.
Yeah.
Gumroad Publishing, totally easy. Yeah. Oh, so good.
I love it.
So James, have you used Tabletop Library yet?
I have not, but that is because Matt and I had a very long and awesome conversation that I tried not to hyperventilate through quite a bit ago. And basically what it boils down to is when I joined OBS as a publisher when Barrel Rider first came out, I entered as an exclusive because I didn't think this would be anything other than pocket money. As soon as I found out about Tabletop Library, I submitted to end my exclusivity, and there's a waiting period where once you submit for your exclusivity to end, you have to wait a certain period before that becomes legitimate. And as soon as my legitimacy, or as soon as I'm opted out of that, I plan on making as many products as possible available through alternate distributors, particularly Tabletop Library. Because, I mean, OBS is great. I've never had a bad experience with them, but that doesn't mean my experience is the universal experience.
Well, and it doesn't make sense to only sell in one store.
Exactly.
If customers are going there, it makes sense as a publisher to go where those people are, right?
Yeah. Well, it's more than just a business thing. A lot of it is the OSR is about people making their stuff and putting it out there. And if you're going to put it out there, put it as far out there as you can, because the coolest thing in the world is seeing somebody you have never heard of, never met, grab your product, and the second coolest thing is saying, I read your stuff, it was awesome. The first coolest thing is seeing someone grab it and then running it, because I try to publish as much of my stuff open as possible, is grab your stuff and create their own something in a different direction that you never thought of.
Mm-hmm.
That is like my favorite thing in the world, and that's one of the things I love about how so much stuff come out from White Star. It's not that it's cool, because it is, but that people are doing stuff with White Star that I never would have thought of. So why not make your stuff available to people through a medium, through their preferred medium?
Yeah.
It just makes sense. Nobody's going to be a millionaire in this business.
No, not anymore.
Well,
at least not from the publishing, not from the
yeah, right. I in the great long conversation I had with Matt, the ridiculous and phenomenal level of unexpected success I had with White Star, it let me fix my car.
All right.
To give you an idea of how much we're rolling in the dough,
I got tires. Yeah.
I got to do an engine repair that I had to do on the car, and that's from a book that sat in the top 10 for 8 months and sat at number 1 for 3 months. And I was able to fix my car. So don't think we put out our one big successful OSR product and then we're all rolling in money forever. There's a reason I'm sitting in a Walmart Hawaiian shirt, with the cheapest webcam I can use.
It literally goes back to the old thing of, and for all the listeners out there who want to get into OSR publishing, you too can make hundreds of dollars a year.
Hundreds of dollars.
Products.
And if you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, because there's no money. You do it because you love it and you watch other people take your stuff and have fun with it, and that's the coolest thing ever. I love it. So I want as many people as possible to be able to buy my stuff and have fun with it.
Well, I would like to bring up that having multiple different outlets, it creates competition, and I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool like free market capitalist, anything like that. That's not me. But I will say that more competition does tend to make things a little bit better for the end user.
Absolutely.
And if you make something that's better for the publishers and better for the user, guess what? It's going to be the new standard, right? I have Matt. You can turn your ears back on at this point, but because I do have one small criticism of Tabletop Library. And that is that I don't think, because I asked John Race, who's also behind the thing, a while back about this, and his response was, why would you want to do that? They don't support pay what you want pricing, at least as far as I'm aware. And pay what you want is a big part of a lot of independent publishers, and me. I can't put my zines on there if it's pay what you want on OBS and not on Tabletop Library. That's just not fair.
And that's one of the things. Where we ended up was, we launched with one set of site architecture, and then realized that it really constrained. It worked great for a little store as a vending machine, but for a lot of the publisher services, we couldn't move data around behind the screen in the way that we needed to, and so we're doing a whole new site architecture that'll probably be up within a week or so, and at that point we're going to take a look and see whether we can do pay what you want. It would also allow us to do print on demand, which is complex enough that is probably not close to the horizon yet, but at least it would be theoretically doable, which it wasn't with the old site architecture. So.
Awesome. Well, that's good news. That's good news, because you'll definitely get more publishers involved with that option. It's just it's something that we've gotten used to. I do it on Gumroad as well. Like I'll have a PDF up there on Gumroad, also on OBS, and you can pay what you want to pay. Some people think it's undervaluing stuff, but realistically, we see people consistently, paying more than the zero they need to pay to get the thing. It gets it in more people's hands, just like James is talking. And the folks who want to pay you for the thing will pay you what they think it's worth, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Over on Twitch, we have a really great conversation going on right now between Krupa the Dreamer, DM Kojo, and Scruzgeek, fun name there, about art in old school games. And the concept of the crux of the conversation is, should art in old school games modernize to attract the newer audience, or is it good to keep that old school feel, to keep that old school vibe, to keep that alive? Where do we weigh in on stuff? What do you think?
Stacy's got probably got some pretty interesting views on that. This is stuff that she and I have talked about because we've been in the middle of this discussion about the design aspects involved in an old school game. So I mean, let's give Stacy, if you throw in yours and then I'll throw in my answer and see where the similarities are. It's sort of interesting thing.
Okay. I very much think that if you're going to be creating, even if it's an OSR game, if you're going to be creating a modern version of it, you should use modern layout techniques, modern design techniques, modern artwork, and kind of do that. I also feel that you need to call back to what the old school kind of stuff is, and modernizing it really means to me that it'll have kind of the same general feel, but that it'll be a newer version of it, like Star Wars is a newer version of Star Wars, but it's still Star Wars. You still can recognize it always as Star Wars. So that's kind of where I like to go with that. I'm not a huge fan of the old school artwork that's in a lot of the books. It's to me it's just kind of bland, to be perfectly honest. But that's about it.
And then my view on that, which is the other one, I think that a lot of fantasy books, and this is probably specific to fantasy, but you've got two different approaches there. You've got the one where you've got stuff in color and very realistic pictures which bring you directly into the fantasy world, and that's the direction that's been done, for quite a long time. But if you were playing with those original books, they actually do something different. They are books about the fantasy world. And so there is a certain power to, and those weren't the only things that were being done like that at that point. Does anybody remember the old gnomes books where they had the pictures of the little garden gnomes?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So those, and they were done as being as if they were textbooks about gnomes,
Yes.
and that I think was also the feel of the advanced D&D books, which they were books about this fantasy world that sort of had this weird crossover where they were telling you rules as well, and so I think that those are actually in some ways two entirely different styles of book. It's not just a matter of which do you prefer. So that I think is something. I tend to like the older school stuff. I have no idea whether that's just nostalgia for it, or what have you. But I do like the older black and white line art.
I have something to weigh in on this from my perspective. When you're talking about old school art and new school art, a part of it is, as far as I'm looking at it, is not so much necessarily even the style of the art, but if you open up an AD&D book versus a 5th edition book or a 3rd edition book or a 4th edition book, if you open up an AD&D book, you have many artists with their own distinct styles. And Goodman Games is a good example of a modern company that's keeping with that sort of motif with their work. If you open up the modern books, you get a lot of really homogenized art that even when you get multiple artists in it, will be airbrushed to appear as whoever the core artist that the company.
Kind of like it's airbrushed in air quotes, right? It's like it's not actually airbrushed.
It's not actually airbrushed, but it's thrown through some paint program to make it look more like the way that they want their game to look. So you've got a lot of homogenized art that all kind of looks the same and gives you the same feel, as opposed to having many artists with their own distinct styles that you can look at each and every picture and go, hey, that picture was done by, this is a picture done by Dave Tramp, or this is a picture done by Chanel Jacques. You've got distinct styles there that are recognizable, which you don't really have that so much in modern games. I don't know if that answers any questions at all, but that's how I weigh in.
That's sort of how mine was too. Was that it didn't have a real answer; it was just an observation.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to answer the question without actually really defining what is the old school art versus what would be new school art, because kind of if you're talking about the kind of airbrushed, homogenized kind of artwork, I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't like that either. But there's plenty of new school art that I do like that actually goes to, there's several different artists, they all have their different, they bring who they are and their artwork into it, which I really love books that are done like that.
Mm-hmm.
the more the art is actually involved in like the conception of the book. I think that to me is a bigger deal. I will say that like some stuff I look at it and it just totally doesn't move me at all. 5th edition just doesn't do it for me. The half leprechauns, that's no thanks. That was bad. But I mean, the art is really homogenized. It is like Ryan's saying, it's across the board. It's consistent. Sometimes every once in a while you get something that looks kind of cool that's ruined by some small detail. I don't know. But my answer would be that I do tend to heavily identify with a lot of the old school art, and I think that might be one of the reasons that I love Dungeon Crawl Classics. I love the books. They're just crammed with art. The whole point of the 4th edition, or the 4th printing, Kickstarter that they did a little while ago was to fund more art, just cram into every little nook and cranny of that thing. But they made the mistake. Well, what's the mistake for me of hiring some of my favorite artists? You got Stefan Pogue, you've got, I'm not going to say this guy's name, you've got Russ Nicholson, you've got like some of my favorite gaming artists in there, and you totally hit me in the weak spot. Matt, you mentioned nostalgia. I think nostalgia is one of those things. It's kind of like it's a tricky thing that we get into every time we talk about the OSR in general, right? There's some stuff that we just assume like, oh, you like that because you had that when you were a kid, right? Or when you were coming into gaming. I think that works for some stuff, doesn't work for everything. I didn't have a Fiend Folio until I was in my mid-teens, somewhere in there. So how could I know that I was going to frickin' flip out over Russ Nicholson art? You know what I'm saying? Like at that point in time, and I'm not the youngest of guys, but I mean my AD&D experience was not with 1st edition; it was with 2nd edition. So when I just fell in love with Russ's art, it was looking at it through the lens of someone who had seen all of these technically better artists, not better, but you know what I'm saying, the folks who were the new TSR artists, your Jeff Easleys and Larry Elmore's, blah blah blah, and looking back at 1st edition stuff from that, and I totally more identified with the 1st edition stuff, not because I had a predisposition for it because I knew it already, but because it spoke to me more. I think that is part of the OSR art aesthetic, but what I would prefer is something like Stacy's talking about. If somebody, if you design a project with the art as an integral component, the art is not like a separate thing that I'm going to hire an artist to do these, drawings, blah, blah, blah. But if you hire them as part of a team that's designing what the thing looks like, it's completely different, because you've got art as well as the art is a part of the game, right?
Yeah.
The art is as much the game as writing is.
Red and Pleasant Land is a really good example of that, and that's exactly the kind of thing that I.
It's the elephant in the room of this conversation, really. Because Red and Pleasant
Land. Okay.
Because it is an old school gaming accessory and it is art at the same time. That's kind of the benchmark, Vornheim took it to a certain place, and then Zach took it a little bit further with Red and Pleasant Land, and that's the high tide mark for me. Things got to get over that bar.
Yeah.
You touch on something there that I am one of the few who, content-wise, Red and Pleasant Land just isn't up my alley. It's not my style. It's not something I would really use. But the art in that book, from the time you look at the cover before you even open it, when you're looking through that book, you don't have to read a word to know the tones, the themes, and the style of game you're getting from page one. And that is the power and the true strength of art. And when you have something that's too homogenized, it all kind of bleeds together and becomes bland. Exactly. It's a gorgeous book. But the content I would use, but as a book, it's genius. As the visual representation of what Zach is getting across. And when the art gets too homogenized, even if it's all good art individually, it becomes bland. Oh yeah, that's going to have this type of color palette to it. Oh, that's going to have this style to it. Okay, and you stop noticing it, except for the weird, crazy leprechaun halfling faces in 5th edition, which scared the crap out of me. So homogenized art.
I want to take their Lucky Charms, man.
You really hate me too. Me too. I didn't think we could do art that would make me hate halflings, and they did it. So yeah, I mean, art evokes so much without ever having to write down a single word, and that's where it's important, whether it's old school, new school, whatever. I think the question we got from Nate talking about Hero's Journey, is it a thing of second edition? Well, there's Elmore stock art in there. Elmore is intrinsically associated.
Well, and
with
there's Elmore, there's second edition in you. I mean, because I know you and I started like with AD&D about the same time. We both got into second edition, like skipped first edition altogether and just went into second. And that it's something that you're always going to see those little blue line page borders, and
that's why Hero's Journey has blue line page.
Yeah.
Hero's Journey has blue line page borders for exactly that reason, or blue toned, line art for that reason, because, and those things do evoke a tone and a feel, and a really good art, whether old or new school, does that amazingly well, and I think Red and Pleasant Land is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Sorry to go off on a rant.
No, rant welcome. Hey, Don, where are you at on this? We're gonna get some knowledge here.
I don't have any knowledge for you. I mean, I can. Every person who spoke is the same shit, I would say. I mean,
especially when we disagreed with each other, which didn't really happen.
No, I mean, like, yeah, I love DCC art because it's reminiscent of the old days, but yeah. Red and Pleasant Land. I mean, I don't even have to talk. You guys said it all,
You didn't even need to show up, did you?
I didn't need to show up. I should just be in bed right now. Yeah. Hey, why don't we give some more stuff away?
Yeah. Let's give some more stuff away. That's a great suggestion. What do we got? What's next?
All right, I've actually got 4 things left. How many do we want to do?
Let's finish it. Let's get it done. I think we're running out of time. So
first off, I've got 2 modules set up for Swords and Wizardry. I don't have a specific version, but whatever. From a local company, Pacesetter Games and Simulations, run by Bill Barsh.
Oh.
He has donated a copy of his module Q3, Death on Signal Island, which I played through that. That's kind of for people looking for the throwback. It's kind of a variant Isle of the Ape. So it's a sandboxy Isle of the Ape. It's kind of a cool thing. And that will go to.
Are you rolling dice to determine this?
I am rolling dice to determine this.
Good
I've
man.
been rolling dice all night.
This is the first time I actually heard them, though.
that goes to Q3 Death on Signal Island, and this is a physical copy. Goes to Brad Black, if you're watching.
Awesome. Congratulations, Brad. That's a good one.
It
took me a second. I knew I had it, and I knew I'd read it, but it took me a minute until Ryan said, "Oh, Isle of the Ape version." Oh, yeah.
The second one is the one module that he's written that's been published exclusively on Swords and Wizardry rules, and it's called The Secret of Red Scar, which is probably like the one thing that I don't own that guy's written. That goes to, and I'm hoping that I'm not butchering your last name here, Jason Blaylock.
How could you,
Jason Blaylock? Yeah.
Blaylock.
How could you butcher that name? That's like an easy one. What do you? How before I told you what my name was, how did you say it?
Adam.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you can cheat. It's good. All right. And we got 2 more things to give away.
2 more things. The first of which is a soft cover Swords and Wizardry white box.
Oh.
That will go to Adam Hutchison.
I got really excited there for a second, despite the fact that I already own it. Really? I get another one? Awesome!
Adam Hutchison gets the white box. The last thing is a product that I have not laid eyes on. I actually learned about it today when it got donated. It looks like, from what I'm seeing, that it's actually a tabletop library exclusive product. And it's funny, because it's actually called Grimoires for Osric, but it states that it's compatible with all OSR systems.
Okay.
And it's basically, it sounds like, and again, I don't own this yet, so I don't know. What it sounds like is that this is a product that's a book of random tables for generating spells.
Oh, cool. That's what. Oh, yeah. Okay, you mentioned that.
It's exclusively in PDF, so the winner of this is going to get a PDF copy. And that is. Can't use that one.
Are you picking the dice that you like?
Yeah.
No, not the dice.
The names. He's only picking the names he likes.
Oh, okay.
It's just like
goes to Steve Gilman.
Steve Gilman. Congratulations. You got a thing none of us have read. Let us know what it's like. Tell DSR what you think, and we'll share it with folks. Hey, I've got a couple more questions, a couple more things we want to talk about before we close things out. But I want to keep it fast. So we got a question a while ago from somebody, and I can't remember who left this question, and it's not up here in the Q&A thing anymore. But I liked it so much, I just wanted to save it for when we'd had a little bit of conversation, so we're not just like jumping into that. But the question was, and it was like the first question that came in, was where do we see the OSR? Like, what do we see like trends in the OSR? Where do we see things going? But I'm going to change it. Where would you like to see? What's the trend you would like to see develop in old school gaming? And it can be Swords and Wizardry. It can be whatever you're looking for. Chances are it'll have some impact. Swords and Wizardry will have some impact on it because it's just so widespread. But what kind of trend would you be excited about in old school gaming? Don's looking really confused or like pensive. Do you have a thought?
I have an answer.
Awesome.
I don't want it to go anywhere.
Oh.
I agree.
Right. Yeah. See. Thank you.
What do you mean you don't want it to go anywhere? You like I'm not saying like, hey, let's get it like it's gonna blow up and everybody's gonna play OSR games. I don't care about that.
Let's add tons of story. I mean, yeah, that doesn't have to go anywhere. It's fine. It's fine where it is. I mean, if anything, it's kind of cool right now because you've got like stuff like James did White Star based on White Box, and like it's just kind of like skipping a stone off a pond.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Where do you want the next skip to be?
Don't skip it. You're gonna run out of skips. It's gonna sink, Adam.
If you don't keep skipping, it's gonna sink, Don.
Don't watch the rock. Watch the ripples. That's what I'm saying.
That's some Zen stuff right there.
One moment over there.
What the fuck are you talking about, Don?
Watch the ripples.
This is why he's been quiet the whole time.
He's been meditating on these questions the entire time we've been
He's like dropping acid the whole time. We didn't even notice.
Don Yoda Stroud.
What is the sound of one character sheet clapping?
Have you been licking the toads back there, Don? That's going on.
Yeah, I don't want it to go anywhere. Just keep on doing what you're doing. OSR.
All right. You shine on, you crazy diamond, right?
Yeah.
Hey, James, what about you?
I think you're going to see, and again, this is I can't believe I'm making conjecture like this in the way I see it is you have anchor companies in the OSR, like Frog God, and they're going to keep doing balls out awesome stuff. That anchors kind of Swords and Wizardry in particular. What you're going to see, and I talked about this on my blog post for SWAD today. People take OSR out of just fantasy. Like one of the things in the past year, White Star did okay, but then you had somebody, I think Anthony Hunt did Skyscrapers and Sorcery, which was modern fantasy using White Box. You had someone. Pete Spawn's getting ready to do World War II Operation White Box. You've got all these kinds of they're taking the OSR simplicity and hackability and going beyond, Sword and Sorcery and taking it in different directions. And I think that is awesome. Silent Legions comes on. It's not a Sword and Wizardry based, but it's another example of an OSR game that goes off in its own direction but has its core in that familiar style of mechanics. And I think that's great, and I would love to see some crazy, wild, I would like to see, it's very specific, but I think it would be really cool to see a game using the OSR based around the Fae. Not not fairies, but fey, scary, terrifying, inhuman. You know, and I think that's the kind of wild direction you're going to see people go in, is just this, you know, out of left field, but that immediately makes you go.
I want you to take a look at something for me, James. I want you to go and find this guy, find Craig Mosier, and look at the stuff he's done for a game he's developing called Noir Wave. It looks fantastic. It's like 1980s. Yeah, I'm not even gonna tell you. I'm gonna let you find out about it for yourself. But Noir Wave, check it out. Okay. It's I don't know if it's gonna be an old school style game. I don't know, but the stuff that guy's kicking out for it looks amazing. So I would totally recommend you.
That's where I'd like to see the OSR go. Is
multi-genre.
Exactly. OSR doesn't have to mean fantasy, but
I would
fantasy
agree.
is still, to me, the foundation upon which it's built, and there's nothing at all wrong with that. I think that's awesome because it makes gaming as a whole approachable. You can take people, okay, they've seen Lord of the Rings, they've seen Conan, they know what they're getting into, and say, oh, you know that system? Well, you can use that to do this, and then
right.
Oh, wow.
Which I think is in a lot of ways, how gaming got started in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to move along. Matt, what do you think? Trends?
Well, I think trends as to where it is going, a couple of publisher ones is that we're seeing a lot more PDFs taking over the printed book market. In terms of where I would like to see it go, I mean, there are two OSRs. People argue about what it even is, and one of them is is simply people playing, with the original rule books, and even there, Swords and Wizardry is awful new school, because there's no reason, you can't be using, the original box set or your original first edition D&D, and the stuff there and the stuff that's being produced for that, I think, it's like Don said, it doesn't need to go anywhere as long as it's good, creative, solid stuff. There's not a need for innovation if what you're doing is specifically playing, in a particular, set of books that you like best, and that, and then on the other hand, I think there's the OSR that's built on what people would call sort of an old school style, which is much more a matter of, DM fiat, basically the GM is much more in control of a lot of the world, coupled with open-ended rules, which is the reason that you need to have, somebody who's the arbitrator with the world. And those open-ended rules, that's an area where you can see all kinds of innovation in it. That's what White Star is taking something that wasn't there before, but applying something that can be described as, sort of game principles, a type of role-playing game, as opposed to another type of role-playing game, which is where you have much more, much more crunch. It's a lot more is defined by the rules. Your game master is bound by rules more, which frees him up to be a head-to-head opponent, to the players, which is, fun, and that's, but it's a different type of game, which is, just as good and just as fun. But that's where you get a distinction, I think, between old school and new school. That's a meaningful distinction, and so, I think in that area, I would like to see more. I guess it's more genres. I mean, I'd imaginative settings, things that are fun, things that are new ways of using that dynamic of the very open-ended rules plus somebody who is just sort of handling that, and interpreting them. So
I like your answer, Matt.
Good. I was gonna redo it in post-production if you didn't. So.
Oh, too bad. No. Yeah, we don't do that here. We expose all of our flaws and visible seam lines and visible wounds. Everybody should see it.
People aren't wearing enough hats.
Right. That's the problem with the OSRs. People need to wear more hats. That's where that's a trend that needs to happen.
Yeah.
So Ryan, tell us about your hats. Tell us about what do you think trends? What would you like to see? Because I'm passing this on to you, like half tempted to be like, okay, Matt just said the answer. I think we're done.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna throw something out completely different out there since we're all expanded into all kinds of OSR games. Is that half of what we're talking about here, in fact, the vast majority of what we've talked about so far related to this question is going with that OSR definition that these games are games that are based on D&D and its derivatives, right? And I'm going to say, fuck that. So, especially with what's going on right now, because there are definitely old school games out there that are not D&D derived. Goblinoid Games owns the Pace Setter system now. They've been making all new Pace Setter system games with that have been really, really good. Crypt World, Magus is awesome. And that's just one thing. In addition to that, we've got people and games that are actually from the old school cropping back up right now that I'm really excited about.
Good Games just recorded Metamorphosis Alpha,
Yeah, he did. Metamorphosis Alpha is there, but that's also, even though that's back in the day, that's also something that's very heavily D&D derived.
Sure.
I'm talking. Sandy Peterson is working on Call of Cthulhu again.
RuneQuest 2
is coming back in print.
Yeah.
RuneQuest 2 is probably Swords and Wizardry, OD&D. That's my shit. That's where everything's at. That is my favorite fantasy RPG of all time. RuneQuest 2 is my second favorite fantasy RPG of all time, hands down. Period. That game is great. It is better than any other edition of that game that's ever been released. It's a fantastic system. There's stuff in my Swords and Wizardry rules that are ripped out and D&D-ified from that. I released a power stat today that was originally ripped off when I was a kid running 2nd edition D&D with occasional power stats thrown in that I pulled out of RuneQuest 2nd edition. So that's an awesome thing. There's that's something that I'm excited about seeing come back. And I'd like to see more of that, is that, we've got these guys that are part of the old guard, coming back into things, and that's kind of a really great thing to see, because not only are we getting the feel, from people who are coming back publishing something, because this is how I played it back in the day, we're finally getting some stuff coming back in there from people, and there's a lot of people that are gone and not with us anymore, and that's unfortunate. But some of the ones that are still with us are finally coming back around saying, oh man, this is the thing again, huh? People are interested in this? Well, here I am. Not only is this how we played back in the day, I wrote this thing back in the day, and here it is. You can have it again. And that is awesome.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's a part of it that gets kind of swept under the rug, I think, a lot of times by the specter of D&D. Yep. But yeah, you're right. It's RuneQuest 2. Hell yeah, of course. COC, fantastic. I mean, hell, I'd say that Warhammer First Edition is an OSR game, but for me at least,
Well, oh my god, I'm totally blanking on the company, but the company who does all the D6 stuff, which is another open system that doesn't get enough love, they just announced Blood Shadows. They're going to re-release Blood Shadows. The old
and did you see that West End Games got picked up by somebody?
Yep. That I'm super excited about too, because I love the D6 system.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Stacy, I know you kind of gave us your answer already a little bit, but you've had some time to think about it now. So, what do you think? Trends?
I vastly agree with pretty much everybody else who's spoken. I'll say I'm playing RuneQuest 2 2nd edition actually right now on Tuesday night. I haven't been a friend of the system yet, but I'm hoping it'll wait.
It's different. It takes
like an acquired taste.
It is a little bit of an acquired taste, yeah. You got to be ready for some grittiness because it gets gritty, It's...
Yeah. I think like some of our players were having a hard time with how open and sandboxy the environment that we were in is, and it took a little bit of getting going. And now that we are, it's actually getting a little bit better. But I love the fact that the OSR is such a touchstone for independent developers. It's like I see more and more and more and more and more of the, I just published a PDF kind of things. It doesn't make a difference if all they published was a PDF and they never actually did a print book or anything like that. To me, it's like I'm very much a big advocate for getting people into game design as quickly as possible and as many people as possible, because it adds to our big pile of really cool stuff that we all get to pick from.
And the bigger the field, the better the stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I want to see it continue going on in that direction. And right now you're seeing people, just regular dudes and dudettes who are out there, actually putting these PDFs together, who they don't have a big publishing company behind them, and they don't have a lot of extra effort that they have to put into it, but they're competing with, we saw this last year at the Ennies, they're competing with really big companies that have a whole lot of resources that they can throw into these things, with books that have 2,000 print runs versus books that have hundreds of thousands. Well, maybe not that much.
Or it's only POD,
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly, and that's freaking astounding, and I really want to see that continue, because that's just so awesome. Where you get those new genres. I love seeing all the new things that people are coming out. I like Reynaldo and Kyle Chenier and Reynaldo. God, you people are hard to pronounce last names.
Hey, I'm gonna stand up in. For all of us hard to pronounce last name guys.
Yes, exactly. I don't even try with you either.
It's not that hard, really. It's you just gotta know phonics for a language you don't speak. It's okay.
But they're coming out with stuff that's based off of like some of the things that I grew up with, some like Nintendo games that I grew up with, or some of the kind of things that were in my kind of wheelhouse, and then bringing them into that OSR aesthetic. It's really fun to look at all the different viewpoints that people have, and then I think it's also having an impact. I think the OSR is also having an impact on other types of gaming systems, because you saw recently White Wolf actually pulled in some of the old people that were part of the original White Wolf, but they're actually making a new version of it, of World of Darkness, and they're coming out with it.
Yeah.
And some of the things
bifurcating the product line, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the things that they were talking about with this new version is that they want to go back to the old feel of World of Darkness back in the 90s when we first started it out. And they want to add, and they actually very specifically talked about things like Lamentations of the Flame Princess and how it's been selling, and how they actually want to kind of tap into the same kind of mentality that the OSR has, but apply it to World of Darkness, which is going to be, years later, that kind of thing. So I think it's really cool to actually see that coming out. I think RuneQuest 2 coming back is kind of one of those things that it actually triggers, and that it's triggering us looking at all of these older games that we haven't played in who knows how many years, and going, gosh, can I get that same love and feel for that game that I used to have, and just put new stuff in it? Because unless World of Darkness really needs that, because it's very 90s. But
yeah.
D&D not so much, because you can do that anywhere. But
Stacey, you just gave me a great idea for our product, and Matt, I need you guys to finance this. We gotta get the rules to Jaroon. We get the rights to Jaroon, and we make a new version of that.
The art's awesome.
Ears all the way around.
Yeah, what I wanted is the art for.
Yeah. Tevis. You know what he does? He's like a huge concept artist for movies. He was the concept artist behind RoboCop. And before he did that, he made frickin' Jaroon, which is amazing. So anyway, yeah. No, you're right. Let's do it. Let's make awesome new stuff again. That's great. Or old stuff new again. Beautiful. I agree with everybody. That's my answer. Everybody had the best idea. I love it. Let's make everything. Why not? We had Chris Katalik on the show a little while ago. Chris from the Hydra Collective. And he did the Slumbering Ursine Dunes, Fever Dreaming Morlinko really recently. And he basically, when he was talking about how he makes stuff, he, I think, hit every nail on every head. What he said is the stuff that he makes is the stuff that he's going to use in the game. That's exactly what I want to see published. I want to see people publishing the stuff that they themselves are going to use in a game. Yeah. I don't want some people to publish stuff that's like, I wrote this so that people will buy it. I don't want that. I don't care about that. I want to see the game that you want to play. Let's put that out there. Share with me that intimate piece of your soul that is your gaming table and the things you put on it. And that's what I want.
I think people can smell a ringer. I mean, I put out a supplement today about halfling space pirates who steal your food, and it reached #1, on release day, because I think that's a really fun concept for a White Star. That's fun to me, and people I think can pick up when you write something for fun or when you write something as a quick grab. It comes through in the presentation, absolutely 100%. And you might have somebody who puts something out for money, and it shoots up for a day and then it disappears and fades away, and people are disappointed, or the creator's disappointed. Well, they weren't passionate about it. They weren't going to use that to have fun, or maybe they were, but that wasn't their primary goal. I'm working a supplement about friggin' squirrels because I think that's fun, and I'm going to use them.
Yeah,
because,
yeah. If it's going to go on your table, I want to see it because
exactly.
That's freaking exciting to me. Well, folks, I think we've done a pretty good job this year. What do you guys think? We did all right. Okay, yeah. I had fun. I'm so glad you were all here. This was a blast for me. It's James and Stacy. It's so good to have you guys back on the show. You guys will always be. You're always invited onto our show. We just got to figure out when we can have you on.
We both
Matt,
have little baby kids. In case good luck with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been pretty regular with our production of the show this year. Some gaps for things like this, like we didn't record this last Monday. Probably not record. Well, we might record next Monday, but we didn't record this last Monday because we're doing this weekend. And Stacy, we gotta get you back on this season. It'll be fantastic. Matt, thanks for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
You are as well. We'd love to have you on the show like a normal episode. It'll be good. So and Ryan, thanks for helping us co-host this thing. Thanks for all the work on Swords and Wizardry Appreciation Day, man. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you on Swords and Wizardry Appreciation Day. I can't talk anymore.
And I'm sure we'd love to have you on the show sometime as well.
No, Ryan's not allowed on the show anymore. No, Ryan, of course, yes.
Well, when I release the thing, we'll talk.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. Folks, and you, gorgeous listeners, gorgeous viewers at home, thanks for being here. We really appreciate you, too. Stay tuned to walk. All these folks here, keep an eye on them. They're always doing new stuff for Swords and Wizardry. It'll be fantastic. Keep an eye out in July for the new the Kickstarter for the new printing of Swords and Wizardry. I want to see the Kickstarter page. I want to see it. I'm excited to see what that looks like. I want to see the art, Stacey. I want to see it so bad. Leak stuff as soon as you can.
Yeah, I probably could start leaking things.
Do it when you know it's okay. Start leaking, and then we'll be good. Thank you all very much for being here. Really appreciate having you. Thanks again. Have a good night.
Mm-hmm.